Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
You know, another day.
Craziness. Thanks for sitting down today.
Yeah, it's great.
Do you remember 5 years ago how this all started?
Yeah, like I'm curious, like how exactly how you remember it. There's like a few different origin stories, right? Because you had been working on this. You were aware. My recollection of how the Free Jacks came to be, and it wasn't even called the Free Jacks back then, and there wasn't MLR. My awareness was you already had your finger on the pulse of the professionalization of rugby in the United States. You had brought this up multiple times, and it was like, oh, what it would look like. And it was always this is never going to work. And then when you brought it up in the context of MLR, it was coming together. I was like, well, this is fun and exciting, but is this one going to work?
Yeah.
And you're like, here's why I think it's going to work. So that was my recollection of it. You actually had.
We're still thinking it's going to work.
We're still thinking it's going to. It's totally going to work. I mean, it's amazing actually how far everything has come behind a vision that was, a vision that was really built on rugby for a lot of folks in the league.
Yeah.
And our vision wasn't just a rugby vision. Right. So, I mean, do you remember that? Like the bigger vision was a bigger vision.
Yeah. But if we take even a step further back, just personally, there were times when you'd be like, yeah, I just ran into, I think it was Keith at one stage. He's living in London, and why don't we have professional rugby here? And I was like, it's not the right time.
Yeah. And you're a very calm, cool customer. And they're like, yeah, it's not the right time. And I'm like, that seems like a stupid answer.
Yeah.
Like that can't be right.
Yeah. Like we solve cancer. There's always the right time.
Yeah. There's harder things, right?
Yes. So it would be Q&As like that. It would be conversations like that where we'd be back and forth.
Yeah. And
then it was 2018 early, and I was like, listen, there is this new pro competition that has got this really interesting structure.
Yeah.
They're passionate rugby people, right? But they actually have a good corporate structure.
Yeah.
This might be the one.
Yeah. And then we were in the family office, like debating these things.
Exactly.
And Logan's at the table and we're around and we have this dual strategy at Ulysses of healthcare and entertainment.
Yeah.
Where we define entertainment as everything you have in your life beyond what you need to survive. And it's just like, it's the orientation of our family with Emily of like, hey, let's just approach the world from a place of abundance. And
how are you going to spend your time?
Exactly. So we're just, there was already that kind of base load of looking for projects that were really around community development and how do you engage members of our community in New England here locally, but also the global community with this principles of like hard work and like family values that we have and like honesty and integrity. And so these are the things we're trying to figure out with our family office.
Yeah.
And you're like,
here we go.
It's like, hey, there's like, and you're like, are they joking? Like who are we getting in with here?
Yeah.
And you were very calm and cool and collected on that. And you're like, well, this is why I think it's going to work. But why did you think it was going to work? Like, what was your perception of what was going on there that was different than the previous attempts?
Yeah, so I think just the trajectory of sport entertainment, right, is a really important piece of this. Timing of that is really, really important. Mm-hmm. And the growth of the game itself globally, where it was positioned, its kind of tentpole, cornerstone events, how they were doing globally, just after the Olympics for the first time in a long time.
So like
Rugby World Cup larger per match attendance in the Soccer World Cup, the growth of the women's game, the growth of the game in North America.
Right.
The fact that, for multiple decades you had people exposed to the game on college campuses, but there was nothing really beforehand or after the fact.
Right.
The scholastic model was changing, and now suddenly there was a group of rugby entrepreneurs who were looking to build this. And what was cool about it, and authentic, I guess, is they were like diehard rugby people. They were rugby club people.
Yeah.
And they could learn the lessons from what has happened in other sports, good and bad, from an entertainment perspective. What's happened with the NFL over 100 years and MLB and then MLS, for the last 20 years, how did it grow? And so there was a lot of opportunities there to say, let's shrink our lessons here and do this for the world's contact game that hasn't really had a chance to in North America. More importantly to me and you was this is actually a tool to do the things that we've always wanted to do. Because there's a lot of ways to create value.
There's a lot of ways to create value. There's also like I remember it coming up as part of the discussion of like, okay, well, if this is really, it's a new sports league, but it's also a new sports team. So there's all the excitement with putting those things together. We're kind of risk-on sort of folks. But But I think the additional piece to that is the why rugby, why now that you're kind of highlighting, and there's all this backdrop to that piece of rugby specifically. But you mentioned something about more sports in general, and I thought that was a pretty compelling piece as well, just the changing media and entertainment landscape and how people spend their time, which we were focused on it at Ulysses at the time, at the family office. So that piece of it I thought was really important as well.
Right, and I think the access that you can have now with media from any corner of the world to be in touch with the things that are most important to you.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that if you could get people in front of the game, whether as participants or as fans watching it live,
Right.
that just the nature of the game is so compelling. There's drama packed into 80 minutes. It doesn't take up your whole day. Everybody runs with the ball. There's tackling, there's kicking, there's passing, give and goes. All of the great things of American sports tied up into this amazing tight ball of 80 minutes.
Right. And how much of in the last few years, let's say the last 5 years, but let's say the last 10 years, of America coming to terms with how they approach a flow sport like rugby? So, of course, you've got something like basketball, and then how we've been approaching soccer, football here domestically. How much of that do you think prepared an American audience for rugby?
It's a great question. I think in a big way, especially with soccer, with football, it has given the American non-traditional soccer fan, through the work of the Premiership and MLS and everything else over the last, call it 20 years, but certainly the last 10 years, a whole new generation's exposure to the sport. And actually the concern of sponsors and partners and media was, how are we going to advertise this? There's no timeouts. There's no,
I remember that.
It's not like the NFL where it's built perfectly
Mm-hmm.
for a TV audience.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to actually monetize that? And I think there's been models proven that there's plenty of ways to do that.
There was a lot of subtle things that came together, I think, right around that time, where you had this vision and how the pieces came together. One that you didn't mention that we found really compelling is the women's side of the sport. And I have 3 daughters. You got 1. It really resonated with us, with our own personal experience, and we knew this. But just, I wasn't fully aware across all other sports, and how with rugby, it's the same rules for men and women. And like just kind of that message that sends at all levels, down to like youth and then through college. And it's like, we're all playing the same game. And with rugby, I mean, you were making this connection. I was
the
like,
ball's the same size.
Ball's the same size. Like pitch is the same size.
Everybody gets to tackle.
Contact is the same rules. Like it's just, there's such a compelling narrative there that is like, we talk about things in other sports about what it is, but in the rugby, which is like people perceive as one of the more brutal contact sports, and we know it's not brutal.
Yeah.
Rugby is not a brutal sport. It's more like Greco-Roman wrestling when you're in contact. But I love that I would get to say to my daughters that they play the same game that my son plays. Same rules, same game.
And they have that
They're
choice.
just as good. Yeah.
And that's awesome.
I thought that was awesome.
And
so,
you can be graceful and you can still like contact, and they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And it's okay to play a game like that.
That was probably the thing that really put it over the line, I think, for me and Emily and the family, of if we were going to do this and we were going to lean in, and we knew it was going to be hard work, and it probably wasn't going to work. Actually, like, oh my gosh, I do sports league in the United States. How do you try to be number 6 or maybe number 5th?
It's
like,
still pretty an awesome place to
Are
be.
you fighting for number 5? And I thought that whole debate, that was the question we got early on, right? It's like, well, how do you compete with the NFL?
Don't have to.
You don't have to. Like, well, that's a pretty high bar.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's not where we're headed here with this thing. Like, when you look at the media market in the United States, 330 million people, beating cornhole on ESPN still could be a viable business, perhaps. Like, I don't know. I don't know cornhole's economics.
Yeah.
But it's on ESPN.
Yeah.
So being number 6 in such a great country with such great engaged fans, the rigor of the business model that said you can lean in on this as a festival sport, as a really compelling live entertainment product, where it's about the experience of coming to a match as much as it is about watching it on television. And anyone who's ever been to a rugby match knows that that's very different. Like, experiencing it in person is like, it's even better than on TV, right?
It's amazing. Well, that's what we said at the beginning. It's like, why are we going to do this? Why are you and I collectively going to do this? Because a lot of other things that are pulling our time, and we can do 10,000 other things.
Yeah.
because this is actually a perfect medium for helping communities have a better life and people having a better life and bringing community together. Live events are perfect for that if they're accessible.
Yeah.
And there's so many events now that are not accessible, whether it's cost, whether it's geography, whether it's time.
Yep.
This is accessible for a 2-year-old. It's accessible for grandma. It's accessible
for men and women playing the same rules.
Exactly.
Like everything about it.
The cost and everything else. I think that's why the city of Quincy has really embraced it, because wait, this is actually awesome. I can just walk down the road.
Yeah, tell me about the relationship with the city of Quincy, because that's just been spectacular to be there. And just it really feels like we're part of an awesome community, an awesome town.
It's amazing.
What's
I think
been
that
your
the best anecdotes, and any of the staff will say this to the players, we're right next to our office, the old Art Deco Granite Trust building, as you know, built in the 20s, right before the Depression, beautiful building. The bank inside there looks like Grand Central. It's gorgeous. We just redid that whole basement as a performance center.
It's kind of crazy how nice it is.
The community's going to start using that.
A
lot of high school athletes are going to start using that. And then second floor is our front office. But that's literally across the street from the mayor's office, from where John and Abigail Adams are buried, the history of that town. This is the city of presidents. This is the birthplace of the American dream.
Yeah.
That is who our brand is. It's
Totally.
just, it's so kind of fitting in perfectly and coincidentally. But you go and you get off the red line, you walk through the city square, and it's 6:30 a.m. and the gentleman who's cleaning up in the city, one of the city employees will be like, "Hi, Alex."
Yeah.
Huzzah, go Free Jacks. It's awesome. They've totally
when you
embraced
saw
it.
the banners up, when the city put the banners up,
Yeah.
All over town, and it was like Free Jacks, and you got Bo's face up there and everyone. So it's like that. And that was it was awesome to see the city really come together to support us. I think in particular, police, fire, city
They're
employees
amazing.
are so nice. It really feels like you're part of a community who wants you there.
Yeah, the
And
mayor's
feels
a
nice.
phone call away. The chief of police is a phone call away. The head of the YMCA, who we're partnering with, is a phone call away. The athletic directors, they're awesome.
Yeah.
We've been in all the schools now, for the most part. They all want us to come back and start building programming, not just one-offs, but programming within the schools, with the idea that there'll be varsity, girls and boys teams in the not too distant future at those institutions. Quincy College, which is one of the very few city-owned JUCOs in America, very supportive, and their partners, and potentially building out to community college type varsity programs, which is very cool. But bringing that back full circle, so we said we can do this with live events. We can do that.
Yep.
We also want to make sure that we're connecting with people every day, that we're bringing them joy. And I think you see that with certainly the Free Jacks digital media side. It's fun. It just kind of gives 30 seconds of levity to everybody's day.
Completely. You did a great job with that. It's fun, and it's pulling them into our community and our brand. I love that we're attempting to have a conversation, and most days you get up and you're brushing your teeth and you might get a good laugh at that. That's not the time where you really need to be you want the heavy dose of did you show up and do your job today?
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of Free Jack stuff that's you're working hard.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're just brushing your teeth and I want to see
have a
you
laugh.
with a horse on your head.
Yeah, exactly. See, exactly.
Yeah.
But then it's also the accessibility to the values of the game. And I think that's really, really cool, and why this is then different. Because we talk a lot about integrity.
That's the base
We talk
load
a lot about respect
of the whole
and
thing.
discipline and teamwork, and that everybody's welcome if they're willing to do their job. And you have this democratizing sport where everybody kind of has to do everything, plus you have your specialty job you have to do. If you don't do it, you're letting everybody else down, but everybody else has to step up, and then you have to make decisions within 5 seconds of being under pressure.
This is the whole thing. I mean, slowing that down, right? There's 15 folks on the pitch.
This is where I get excited.
Yeah, right,
Most
completely.
excited, yeah.
And there's from 1 to 15, and everybody's got their job to do at any moment, but then also how that job shifts based on what's happening with the play. So there's not a reset, right? If your scrum half just got tackled and on the ground, who's getting the ball out?
Yeah.
And I love, and you've always talked about the sport this way, and I think the more time I have spent with it through MLR and through the Free Jacks of really going deep. I mean, you have been a rugby athlete your whole adult life. And so you appreciate the game at a level.
The athlete part, I wouldn't say.
Okay, for a while at least. So that's true. Did you make it up for our alumni event last year?
There's a Golden Oldies tournament on Father's Day weekend, right? Free Jacks. We might have to have an old green team.
I think I'm busy that weekend.
No.
I think I'm booked up with something really important.
Yes.
Maybe.
Old Crow Medicine show's playing. Come on.
Oh, Crow Medicine Show is coming to that?
Yes.
Oh my God, Father's Day this year?
Yes.
How did I miss that?
This
is me. This is me.
Yes. You're running your day job.
Running my day job instead of the
100 hours a week.
Totally. That'd be amazing.
So speaking of your day job and the work you guys are doing at Alloy.
Yeah, Alloy
You
Therapeutics.
guys have been, almost since the beginning, a great partner of the Free Jacks.
Yeah.
And I don't know biotech well enough to speak for the company, but my understanding of what you guys have done in layman's terms is create an ecosystem, a platform that in a lot of ways has allowed people that don't usually have access to certain technologies.
That's the heart of our business model, is really around access. So at Alloy Therapeutics, well, it's right in our name, right? It's Alloy. We do everything in collaboration with others.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's unrelated that this all came together. The whole Free Jacks in 2018, Alloy founded in 2017, but there's a lot of thoughts that went behind that. And so these are two very big and very important organizations for me.
Platform companies.
Platform companies.
Ecosystems.
Completely. That's exactly right. So it's, on the Alloy side, this is about making not only the technologies and the systems and the platforms of drug discovery available to everyone, but also we show up and we do the hard work. So we have platforms and we have services. So we wrapper that in a service, and we're able to go to people and be like, how can I help today? And sometimes that answer is like, I just need some advice. And guess what? We don't charge for it. Like anybody comes along, we're helping. Like we've built an organization that has enough resources that we can help people even if we don't get paid to do it. And that feels really
so
good.
Cool.
And so, there's an element of that brand promise that is with the Free Jacks, right? Just the idea that you show up and you do the hard work. Like you talk about, the players talk about that. Like, that's an ethos of how we practice and how we show up on game day.
Yeah, humble, community first, hardworking, adapt, execute, and have fun. Enjoy it.
And if you look at our season ticket holders, the founding members who've been there since the beginning, holy bonkers, that's like totally overweighted towards people who feel that same way.
Yes.
So like I think we've dialed in that right like core of a community of people who show up with a lot of integrity and get the work done.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
I mean, so let's talk about the Free Jacks brand, because like the Alloy brand is one that I'm incredibly proud of, that we made, that we make medicine together with others. Like here I'm drinking out of my coffee mug. May the best drug win.
So good.
So this idea is we try to create access to great technologies and services so that anyone can discover drugs, in the hopes that the best drug gets to a patient. Because we believe a funny thing at Alloy, which is there's 8 billion people in the world and we're all collaborating to defeat disease. There is no competition. Sometimes when they say that, people
just so antithetical to how most of us think about corporate.
I think antithetical to how most people think about the corporate thing. When you put on your business hat, and you, there's like limited resources. It doesn't come from a place of abundance, right? Whereas Alloy, we try to cultivate that mindset, like we do in our family, of how do you think from a place of abundance, and just like this feeling that you have enough. Yeah. Because when you feel like you have enough, by the way,
then it'll change your decisions.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then it makes it a little bit easier psychologically, I think, to give. And families understand this, and like small communities understand this. And so so the brand at Alloy, this brand promise. So really proud that Alloy can have the logo on the front of the Free Jacks jersey. Because I know the backstory to the whole Free Jacks brand.
Yes.
And there's a way we talk about it in the community, but there's also like how it came together. And like we had a lot of ideas.
So going back to that, the point about Alloy and that the comparison as a ecosystem on the Free Jacks, when we were thinking about this and we're like, okay, well, there's this missing piece in professional rugby on the men's side at least.
Yeah.
That's clear. Obviously on the women's side, and we're trying to work on that as we speak. But we're missing that, and we're missing this piece tying everything together. And you have academic collaborators at Alloy. We've had and have people at the club level and the local youth team that just really haven't had a lot of support. They haven't had a lot of infrastructure to be better at coaches and be better at refereeing and all of those pieces. And so here in that way as an ecosystem, we can help connect all those dots. And suddenly people are like, wait a minute, we're actually much better together with this platform.
I've never connected those dots exactly in the way you say that, right? Because at Alloy, we reinvest 100% of our revenue back into innovation and access to innovation. And it's this idea that
you don't make any money.
So we make a lot of revenue, but we have this commitment that if you give us revenue, if you're paying us to do something, we have a technical roadmap that goes out for years. and we're going to build these new things that we're building. We're pretty open with our technical work.
Yeah.
We tell people what we're working on, big companies, small companies, academics. And what we're trying to do is to build this pre-competitive technology stack and the services around so people can get access to it.
Which is awesome.
We're going to keep reinvesting that forever. So that's part of the brand promise. So, but I hadn't thought it in the context of collaboration the way that you just described as the Free Jacks, of almost like because we know it doesn't make money to invest in youth and club. Like there's never been a part of the Free Jacks business model that says somehow this is paying us off, but it's at the heart of what we're doing.
Right, because that's bringing communities together and giving them access to this sport, whether it's contact or non-contact. That's so fun. Like, and that's the thing. I mean, there's 285 quasi, or rugby organizations in New England. 285, and if somebody had asked you that, they'd be like, "There's no way there's that many."
There's no way.
But there are. But most of them are run by great volunteers who are trying to figure it out, who have a love for the game because it gave them so much, and they're trying to figure out how to share that. And here we are now all working together for the most part. We're learning how that all can be shaped, but getting boots on the ground at their training sessions and giving them new IP. That's IP that we're creating, but it's here because it's making a better experience for all those involved. And I want my kids to have that experience.
I love that's lowering the bar because, it's lowering the bar to the access to the sport, right? So that helps. And that gets into some of the bigger discussions we've had at Major League Rugby and how the whole league is put together, how our team fits into that. And that what we always talk about with not only our partners at MLR, but also with the global rugby community, with World Rugby, with USA Rugby, is that every dollar spent in rugby, and MLR otherwise, is somehow flowing down to the whole rugby pyramid.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to us because of this whole community engagement and building this engagement with our own community. At Alloy, oftentimes, it's funny, I don't think about these things in the total context, but I guess I only have like one business plan, so this is good.
I just applied it.
Totally. It's just applied in a different way. So like how that strategy applies to both of our businesses is pretty interesting.
Yeah, very cool. Do you remember how Free Jacks came about?
I want to go find our old spreadsheets.
I have a bunch of them still.
Yeah. So I mean,
we were all over the shop in a like if you look at true brainstorming, like that's really healthy.
Yeah. Well, look, maybe what do you remember some of the common things? Because we eventually zeroed in on the name Free Jacks because as something that we totally is new and made up.
Yes.
Right. So it was we wanted to end up in a place that would be very distinct and unique as a brand. And most of our ideas, of course, there's only so much space you have to work with.
But had history and also could exist in 150 years.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing about the Free Jacks brand. And people's like, I've heard of the Free Jacks. I know that. Like, and this is before we ever launched the brand. It's like because it sounds like something that's real.
Exactly. We went from thunder to freedom to independent to there were so many things in there.
Yeah. So some of those threads, right? We were looking at that kind of revolutionary spirit and that independent spirit, and
and really that is like. Somebody who's just a regular somebody is out there working really hard for the common good.
Exactly. For the common good was like that was a common thread with like the cavalry and the like all of them. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones in there.
There's some funny ones.
Super funny ones. Woodgie's the mascot. So there's a long list of other funny stuff in there. Yeah, Jack Squatch.
Yeah, the Jack Squatches, the Apple Jacks. Yeah. With their eyes crossed out.
Totally.
Like
my gosh,
in
I forgot that one. Yeah, but
the Christmas story.
At the heart of the brand, that never changed, right? Who's the person that shows up and does the work and has that independent, semi-revolutionary spirit that like all of New England understands, right? That's what's great about New England. I grew up in Kansas, where when you study social studies in grade school in Kansas, you touch on the Revolutionary War, and then it's all about Western expansion and kind of what happens there. Yeah. Our kids that are growing up in New England, because I've lived here for more than 25 years at this point, like, oh my God, like every year it's like it's unwrapping more of like the revolutionary spirit.
The amazingness. Yeah.
So, and this is true like for all of New England. Like we are still fighting the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Which
learning
is awesome.
How to farm on granite.
Yeah. Totally. It's with that level, that drive and that independence, and that is part of the New England spirit that's like pretty unique, like a little
the
bit
adaptability that you see in academics and politics and commerce and it's work hard but adapt and execute.
Yeah,
you see that in the sports teams that have represented the area for so long. Grind,
totally
adapt to what you see, and then you'll prevail. I think that's a very common mindset of a New Englander.
I mean, there's nothing else to do in the winter other than work hard, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We
or do nothing.
Like we could get so much done. Like, oh my gosh, like I love that Miami is coming in. Because so we've got our newest expansion team in Miami, which is awesome. Great owner, great team, great program that's coming in. I love Miami.
I really want to go with a white suit and no shirt underneath.
That's going to be so much fun. Totally. That's a good idea. Could we print a jersey that looks like a suit for our away jersey when we play Miami next year? Yes. Oh, that would be amazing.
Our Miami Vice jersey.
It has to have a collar. Though.
Yes.
That's like we agree on that. Okay. It has to have our Miami Vice jersey with a collar. But it's great. Clearly, Miami's going to have problems because it's too nice. They're too distracted. Their players are going to be distracted. Yeah. Like in New England, we got nothing else to do but train and work hard.
Just be awesome.
You know, exactly.
So Kastner was like, "Well, what about Jax? Because Jax was, our dog."
Yeah,
Jackson.
You had a dog named Jack.
He's like, that's a great name, and so we started playing with that, and that kind of fit in. And then you did your Brainiac. Kind of, how does this fit into the symbols of? Was it Chinese? Was it Mandarin or was it Japanese?
Yeah. Japanese, Chinese. Yeah. So we were like pulling some things together. There was like, oh my gosh.
Like, how do you make this universal? Was that question? Like,
that was the question.
How do you take this spirit and apply it universally as best we possibly can?
So the word Jack in Chinese, for instance, we wanted to have a brand that actually worked, and so we were checking it in a whole bunch of geographies, and just the word Jack, right, is Jieku in Chinese, and it meant like hero overcome, like in the characters and stuff. And you're like, okay, first of all, someone needs to double check that because it's not like our Chinese. We're not that good at Chinese. So
it's been a while.
Supposedly someone has checked that and it's true. I love it that it actually probably means like bar face or something. But I don't know. So,
but either way, it's positive.
It's great. It's fantastic. So that, like, just the fact that it would work all around the world, kind of coming back to the place of this is our community and this is our first community in New England. And it all starts with like the little villages and the little towns and the little cities. And, Boston feels like a small town. Yeah. Like it's a real city, but there's aspects of Boston. There's a lot about Boston that feels very small, right? And then New England kind of extends from there. And, but there was always this focus in what we were doing with the Free Jacks that like, when someone's wearing this jersey in Africa, someone's wearing this jersey in England, in France, right, in New Zealand, what is it going to mean? What is it going to stand for?
How do we bring out the best in them in terms of these certain values?
Yeah, that's right. And how do we be proud of what we're building, that we want our kids to grow up and be proud of that like a participant in that. And where you just feel like if you're going to do something in your life, you may as well do something with an organization that actually stands for your family's values as much as anything else.
Yes, it's the fist of revolution and the light of hope.
Yes.
And that can then represent so much.
Yes.
It's like,
have we ever fully unpacked like the Lantern of Hope thing of like where that's come from, Pandora's box?
We probably don't explain that well enough because it's such a good part of our brand.
Is it a good part? I mean, it's good for us. I mean, it's like, here, we're doing this on film. Maybe we should like tell it and put this in the vault. So there's like, but the Fist of Revolution part, like I remember when like how that was coming out and it was manifesting from you with the iconography and just tweaking how the logo looked so that it really did look like the Fist of Revolution.
Yeah, and we had to change certain parts of it. And
yeah.
But everybody understands like a fist in your face, not in a negative way, but like the strength of that brand, right? It's like it's coming at you in a good way. Like here we come.
And the Lantern.
And you know what we're bringing when we're doing that?
Yeah.
We're bringing light. Like that's that's that. Paul Revere-ism, but everything else-ism is like it's bringing hope with it.
That was
out of the darkness.
That was what we were trying to do from the beginning. So it's funny, like so many people I'm sure experience the brand or show up to a match in a game, and like we always talked about this. It has to be entertaining. It has to be fun. 80-90+% of the time, it's got to be a place where you want to take your kids and your family, and it's something you experience. And you get there, you can experience it, you can be as part of your.
But this is where I get choked up. I mean, people come to the game. Matt, he comes in between his. He's got some kidney issues. This is the one thing he has, He's got other things, but this is the one place he can go that he can really just relax and have a great time in between having to do dialysis 3 times a week. You have a woman in New Hampshire whose father lives in Maine. She's been diagnosed with cancer. They drive down and meet at the games every single game. And that's their like come together time. It's amazing and magical and fantastic. And that's where they can go and laugh together and have drama together and experience something that's so exciting and just have real time together.
And so the organization, the company that you've put together that holds the Free Jacks, where we talk about that as a sports media and entertainment company with rugby at its heart.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, I think a lot of people hear that and it's like, oh, it's a rugby organization. But the rugby at its heart also means the extra thing to me of like all the values of rugby.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
and now sharing those with other things.
Exactly. And so what are the other choices we make, like the in-between days festival?
What else can give you that feeling? Well, the arts can, music can. Getting access to music is important. It's not a lot of people necessarily get that without huge expense. And providing ways for music to be ingrained in our everyday. We'll be announcing soon the Free Jacks Brass Band. We haven't decided on the official name yet. Brass Talica came up last night.
That's a new one. Oh,
that goes up with Jack Squash.
Yeah.
But they're going to be fantastic.
Oh my
but then again, that's a very diverse set of just fantastic musicians that now get to be a part of, just another programming element in the day to make it even that much better of an experience.
Yeah.
But then, having music in that venue and being really good at purveyors of quality music, we can now do that when it's not rugby season.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And then bring that same feeling of just, I'm going to buy somebody a beer who's next to me, even though I don't know them because I just met them and they may be voting for the opposition, but bringing that spirit to our music experiences.
Yeah.
I think
it's so important how we create those opportunities. We collectively, not just the Free Jacks, we create those opportunities for folks to come together in a collective social space. So sport is great at this. The principles of rugby, this is what made the whole thing obvious of, well, I know these things will work. So the things that we knew were going to work with the Free Jacks as a brand was that you get rugby for free. Right, so you're going to get that whole mentality where we knew from our experience playing rugby, you've got 2 teams that are fighting it out on the pitch, and afterwards, you're both going out and having dinner together.
You're breaking bread together. That's what
That's the culture of the sport.
People have done.
And we've speculated on this. And I know we've talked about it before, but rugby is a very unique sport in this, in that you perceive it as brutal, but it's not. Right, you don't, not at all. Right, so most contact sports, the intention of the contact is to hurt the other person.
Yeah.
So
there's an honesty in the contact in rugby.
Exactly, and the rules
and
actually support that. And so, the fans, I don't know if they, how much everyone realizes this, but you can get a red card after the fact, after an MLR match. You might on film review later, if something happens away from the play, we can have a player 100%. That's pulled. And so there's always this. There's an enforcement and an intentionality to the rules of the respect for the game in rugby that you don't have in some other sports. And so what I think is that contact, where else in your life are you in such intimate and sharp contact with another human being, and sometimes where it's not intended to be brutal. I think that's one of the things. I think that 80 minutes of that, 45 minutes in play, 40 minutes in play, is what really makes people think differently about the opposition.
Yeah.
Right. When you go up, when we're tackling, we're in a tackle. And you have responsibility for the safety of the player you're hitting. It's not their responsibility to be safe. It's the tackler's responsibility for the safety of the player.
Yeah,
this is in the
awesome.
rules.
Yeah.
And you think about that and you're that's not how we approach competition in business.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's an element.
But Alloy does.
Alloy tries to. I mean, we tell people we don't compete with anyone. It comes back to that principle of there's 8 billion people in the world. We're all collaborating to defeat disease. We don't compete with anyone. I think sometimes when I say that, people are oh, you think you're so good, you have no competition. It's no. It's not that we're the best. It's that if someone can do something better than we can, we just want to work with them. Let's do the piece that we think we can do pretty well. You do the piece you do. Let's work together. Why our name is literally Alloy. Let's work together to accomplish something. In this case,
create
it's
something much better.
Together. So we make medicine together, right?
And may the best drug win.
And may the best drug win, which That means that at Alloy, what we mean by the may the best drug win is that if every company, if every researcher, from an academic who's working in her lab to an academic who she's starting a new company and she just has a great idea for a new drug, but she needs access to technologies in the lab, all the way up to a head of a pharmaceutical company, and she's thinking about how do I come up with a strategy around how do I launch a product.
Yeah.
Like, if everyone in those situations get access to the same technologies or the same expertise, the things that we can share and still make a reasonable business model, it creates $1 of profit over the long run. That's like our top level OKR, our objectives and key results. We all laugh about this. It's like, how is one of your 5 top level OKRs to make $1 of a profit? Is that a business? And you got to understand some other pieces of our business and how it works. And part of it is this decentralized business model that believes in people. And so we start new companies that leverage all of our resources, and each of those companies is really a bet on a person.
Right.
So it comes down to
really
that fierce
cool. And then
individual.
and they move forward. So speaking of platforms like that, Alloy's been a great partner of ours. But from your perspective, I think we see our match day festivals as opportunities for people to come together, and sometimes that's people coming together and making business together and leaving, with a better relationship that's a safer relationship because it's not in a boardroom, it's not at a sales cocktail party, it's sharing this medium of music and sport and good food and sometimes beer fest tied into that. Have you found that that's been helpful for Alloy?
Yeah, we show up. Our company shows up. Our teammates. It's a great team building event, right? Free Jacks have 8 home games there in Quincy throughout the season. So season starts in February, but our first home match is right around St. Patty's Day. So it's the Saturday before St. Patty's Day, Friday before St. Patty's Day.
It's the week. It's March 11th.
So that's kind of the start of the home season, right? And then it extends. It's a great way for us to get together as a team at Alloy, right? So we've thought about other consistent things we can do as a company to create a shared experience.
Yeah.
And so being a sponsor of the Free Jacks, being over in the VIP section or kind of traveling, it's also, even if we're over on that side, it's like everyone we interact with can always show up to a Free Jacks game and have a very similar experience. Like it's not like we're up in a box somewhere as a team. So I love that we can invite our partners in to share that experience with us.
And you can go around the corner and be blowing a Vuvuzela, and it's okay, and you're making it safe for your employees to act like you're having fun. You're being vulnerable, which is, I think, is a cool example as a CEO to be doing.
Oh, that's a nice way to say when I get too rowdy on the sidelines and blow a vuvuzela.
Is it just you're really competitive?
Yeah, it's not. There's a part of me that's very, I want to win. We want to be the best. But that experience on game day for Alloy with the Free Jacks, you guys do a great job. You guys do a great job as an organization of just making it really easy to come in. There's the food in the festival, and people can grab a beer or non-beer or whatever, and it's kind of easy and casual, and the action's going on the whole time, and there's always something happening. So it's a little bit like sometimes when you watch another sport, like if you blink for a second, you might miss the one goal in the game. Yeah. And you're like, what just happened? Right?
No, like with rugby, people who don't know the game are still having a great time.
And it's like an American rugby is when an MLR rugby specifically, not just American rugby, is kind of like the equivalent of the West Coast offense.
Yes.
Like when that hit, our scoring's higher,
ball
just
and play time's higher.
Exactly. Everything's sort of faster. Yeah. Why do you think that came about? Why is it so? Why is MLR such a fast pace?
Tweaks of rules, but really it's just the content of the people within that product. Yeah. Effectively, you have some really good global talent. Mm-hmm. You have some really good domestic talent that have played internationally. Then you also, the way we've structured the league, we also have some up-and-coming American and Canadian talent that quite hasn't had that same experience. Yeah. So you're seeing a talent differential and experience differential, and that's, I think, where you see some of those opportunities created. Right. Where I think you see these swings in the game of rugby about every 10 years. The defenses figure out how to improve, and the overall game is a much lower scoring game. Then you see attacks adjust to that, and it becomes a really, really high scoring sport. And you go through those waves, and we're kind of we got these little micro pieces.
But it's like a shootout, and it's so exciting.
It's a great way to say it. Yeah.
When you
analogy is the West Coast offense.
When you explain rugby to someone who hasn't experienced a lot of rugby, and you're like, well, you've seen football, you've seen NFL. It's like, what's the most exciting play you've ever imagined? I think you said this to me, or I heard you say this early on in the Free Jacks. I was like, it's like the play at the end of the football game.
Stanford Cal band on the field.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's the Stanford Cal band on the field is all 80 minutes of a rugby match.
Yes,
right? It's like
exactly.
everything's a flow and it's being flipped out, and there's very few resets.
But you still have the chess piece that you have that you can appreciate with American football. Like, how are we gaining territory? Like, what are we doing tactically to do that? How's that fitting into an overall strategy?
Yeah.
And that chess movement is also really attractive in 15s rugby.
And I love how that translates over. And so if we draw this connection to our businesses, right? And then what we do in biotech, so we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just such a team sport, right? Everything we do in Alloy is, tries really, really hard to make it collaborative. And so we've always talked about this as rugby, is why are these things tied together? And it's like, well, it's everyone is working together towards this kind of like common goal, but they also, like, everything changes very quickly.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And
you have to adjust.
And you have to adjust, and you got to go with what you have.
Yeah.
And like,
I control this. I thought I controlled this. I don't anymore.
Yeah.
Now I control this.
And I love that everyone gets to make a decision. So there's an element of rugby that is just fundamentally entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
if I were to pull
independent.
that over.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Just totally. Like,
Yeah.
you have to, in order to be an effective rugby player, and you can't, to participate in the sport, you can't sit back and be like, well, I've got my play. Like, I memorized all my plays. Like, so win this, then that. You're like, no.
Make
Like,
decisions under pressure. It's a couple quick things. I know we got to wrap up. Really appreciated Alloy involving us in the book club the other day when we got a chance to kind of
the CEO
reconnect.
book club.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So we do a CEO book club.
Okay.
Well, I'll come back to access, right? Because you talked about access earlier, and the reason why I do a CEO book club at Alloy is to be accessible to everyone. Actually.
Awesome.
So kind of access is the heart of what we do. So my principle is everyone at Alloy knows how to read. And so if you
principle.
want time, right? It's like I know that's true. Like, we've got some PhDs from impressive places. So since everyone knows how to read, and this is something we can do on Zoom as well. So kind of in this Zoom world, in this post-COVID world, I've always done book club, but it's accessible. What it means is that the CEO participates in an activity where everyone can participate in it. Like,
I love it.
It doesn't matter if you're athletic. Like, it's not like I'm golfing. It's not like I'm out playing squash with folks or doing something else. Like, you don't have to be good at anything except reading, and then show up and have an opinion. So we did this book club. Yeah, that's right.
Legacy,
We did
the All Blacks.
We did Legacy by James Kerr.
Yeah.
The All Blacks. And so...
and you welcomed our staff, which was amazing. So Scotty Matthew, our head coach, he's fantastic. Was able to be a part of that and kind of bring to life.
Scotty was like the standout.
Yeah, he's
like,
fantastic.
It was incredible to see his, because he's an educator by background.
Yeah, he's a teacher.
And so to see that, his
English
perspective,
teacher.
is pretty amazing. Like our team at Alloy, there was a bunch of scientists there and some of the folks on our business team. His insights and like the notes that they took away from the things that Scotty was sharing about running a rugby organization and like coaching was like spectacular.
Which is awesome. And Sweep the Sheds and all those pieces were fantastic.
Yeah.
Another one is, we really appreciate having Alloy on the front of our jersey. That's an asset that's our most valuable asset. I know that from a numbers perspective, you guys are getting 4 to 5x return on that from a numbers perspective. But for you guys, why is that important to be associated with us, visually like that?
Yeah. So from first the numbers perspective, you mean like and the impressions and all that stuff that comes through. It's like we're like on national television. It's all these things.
And so for you guys, is that translating? Is that top of the funnel brand?
Yeah, no, it absolutely. I mean, it's kind of amazing. We have people who know Alloy not as like a biotech company, not as a drug discovery company that does antibodies and bispecifics and soluble proteins against peptide MHCs through our Keyway brand, like all of the above, right? But they actually know us through rugby, and then they do biotech, and then they go a little deeper, and so. But that awareness spreads all over the country, which was pretty, like, I didn't fully internalize actually that there'd be people on the West Coast that only know Alloy because we're on a Free Jacks jersey.
Yeah, so cool.
Right, so that's pretty cool. It is. Well, how did we end up there? We had a discussion as a team, and it's the values piece of the Free Jacks. It was knowing that if our logo was alongside the Free Jacks logo, if our logo was on a jersey of a sports team, it's knowing that the behavior of the players and the organization were always going to be the highest ethical standards.
Yeah.
And what helps when you're like an owner of the team and you can so I can
you
ensure
can
that that's true. Exactly. But it's also you.
Yeah.
It's also the rest of the staff. But I would say even beyond that, it's the sport and the league itself. right? So there's just an ethos and a culture at Major League Rugby and among even the other teams where I think everyone's getting that brand promise across the rest of Major League Rugby.
We're going to break bread together. We're going to create Alloy together. We're going to.
You are not going to be seeing a player in a jersey with your logo on it misbehaving at Major League Rugby.
Exactly.
And so as a brand and as a company, like
people up,
that's that there's like some safety element, and then we can start talking about it's like, okay, so first, do no harm to the brand, right? And so be represented and associated with something that's really exciting, and then beyond that, there's the reach and the impact and how people associate.
The rugby hotspots are also biotech hotspots. You know, San Diego, San Francisco, Vancouver.
That's right.
Atlanta, Boston, New York. I mean,
I don't
so you're looking
like
at the hotspots of the game.
JetBlue flies to every city out of Boston.
Delta flies to even more now.
Delta flies to all of them. We got a great facility down there. So the fact that Delta flies to every city.
They now
that
have
we
a direct to
participate
San Diego as well.
We got a direct to San Diego now?
Yeah.
Are we going to be on the direct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
They're
so funny to see like a huge prop with everyone else like flying.
It's a great visual. I think Brendan took the other day when they're flying to Houston for the preseason match, and they're all in their uniforms. And you look up the plane; it's one of the smaller planes and jets, and they're all Free Jacks players in different heights.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's a great uniform picture.
Oh my gosh! Don't go down, plane. Don't go down.
No, it's good.
So that experience with it, I'm excited and proud to be on the front of the jersey, and you know, we talked about whether we should do that or not, and not just we Alloy, but also we together, me and you, and I'm really proud to have it there. You know, we could be in a lot of different places, but I love the fact that, you know, when everyone's wearing their Free Jacks jersey, like Alloy's right there on the front.
Right there. Even if like I go buy a jersey today, it's got Alloy on the front.
It's pretty.
Which
amazing.
it's also a gorgeous. It's a handsome logo. It's got great.
Thank
action.
you for that.
It's great action. It's perfect for.
It's you know, it means that our logo here, because we talked so much about the Free Jacks logo and the thought that went into it, and how it really the Free Jacks logo and the intentionality of it representing hope.
Yeah.
And how people bring hope into their communities, and then Fist of Revolution as well. So the Alloy logo is actually the Chinese or the Japanese character for person, is what it looks like and what it evokes. But the line is broken actually, and because it's this idea that we make medicine together. Yeah. So it's also kind of a joining of the paths together. And so like, how do we come together? And so I love that, you know, there's this message with Alloy of like, if we come together, we can make medicine together.
Love that.
But the line, you know, we're not there yet. Like the line's broken because people are sick, and we know we've got work to do. Yeah. But if we work together, we think we can bring that together, and you can make a whole person if you bring all that together. And so, you know, this means a lot to me and to our brand and to our people. And it's a constant daily reminder when I'm drinking my coffee, or in this case,
like cocoa?
Hot chocolate. Like I tell you that I was like pouring some coffee. I'm like, I'm gonna have hot chocolate today.
Yeah,
like, this will be great.
So that are gummies for you. So.
It's, you know, the gummies, that'll be dessert.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
We love it. Thank you, sir.
All right. Hey, thanks for everything.
It's great.
It's good.
Onwards.